Hey everyone, my name is Julia with AllTruckJobs.com, and today I sat down with Micheal Freeze to talk about diversity in the trucking industry. Micheal Freeze is the features editor at Transport Topics. He's a veteran of the trade in news publishing and has worked in various industries including logistics, snow management, the automotive aftermarket, and agriculture. As a reporter and editor, Freeze has interviewed many business executives and covered a plethora of labor and government topics. All right, let's jump into our conversation with Micheal Freeze. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really looking forward to just this interview and everything that you're going to share with us today. So could you just tell me what your name is and a little bit about your role?
My name is Micheal Freeze, and I am the features editor of Transport Topics. And I'm also the co-host of the Road Signs podcast. The Road Signs podcast takes a more forward-looking view at the industry. We tackle several subjects, such as driver pay, just the issues that are concerning truckers.
Well, I'm sure your podcast is super helpful right now, just with how much the trucking industry is really booming right now. So we're really excited that we just get to sit down and kind of collaborate and discuss diversity in the trucking industry right now. This is obviously just a super important topic. And so we're really grateful that you were willing to sit down with us and just dive into it a little bit more. So I was wondering if you had any personal experience with diversity in the trucking industry, or if you've witnessed any issues surrounding diversity in the industry in your position that you're in right now.
Well, I mean, personally, I have not. I'm just a reporter in the trucking industry. So going through, certain things, I mean, I can tell you a whole bunch of times where there have been some, issues concerning, diversity, on a personal level. I mean, but like those things are all incremental. I hear the stories from truckers, and as I said, this is all incremental. This is nothing that would appear to be systemic in any sort of way. But I mean, I've talked to drivers who've mentioned mentioned certain circumstances where there was some type of racial bias or some type of gender bias going on. But I mean, it's something that we all have to deal with in life in general. So I mean, I think when it comes to diversity, it's best to celebrate the differences, and be proud of who you are, which most people usually adhere to.
That's awesome to hear that. It sounds like maybe you would agree that then the trucking industry is pretty diverse.
Oh yeah, it's definitely diverse. I mean, you can just see traveling on the highway, and you just see who's driving that Class 8 truck. It could be someone of Indian origin. It could be Asian, African American. Could be a female. You see that you do see that more often just driving on the road. As for the executive, the C-suite level of things, there's work to be done, and they are taking steps into making that area of the trucking industry more diverse. I mean, on a racial level, and also on the gender level as well. There's a lot of work that's done by the organization Women in Trucking. I mean, they do a lot to bring awareness to how females can contribute and lead in the trucking industry. I mean, it's going on all ends. I mean, there's definitely a more concerted effort than it has been in the last 10, 20 years.
Do you know of any specific things that companies or higher up parts of organizations are doing to just continue to promote diversity throughout the trucking industry?
Well, one of the things from the fleets and the organizations that I've spoken to, they're making the point of bringing the industry to the point of contact to where the people are at. When you speak of diversity and bringing a more inclusive workplace area, first thing you want to make sure that access is there. Because the simple phrase of if you don't know, now you know, and knowing's half the battle. Like for instance, the Arkansas Trucking Association, they have an organization, but basically what it is it's basically a virtual trailer that promotes the technician profession, within the trucking industry. So kids that wouldn't be aware that there was such a career path to take, they can go into these simulations in these trailers and learn the insides of a truck and learn the basics of trucking, of driving a truck. Arkansas doing this, and there's other states that are interested in doing this. And fleets are also making a concerted effort to go into maybe poorer communities, maybe communities where a great majority of people of color, and just kind of bringing the industry to them and just showing them that this is a career path that you could take, that you don't necessarily have to have 4 years of college to go to. I mean, you can desire to have a CDL license, and you can go on into this field where you can make a great living for you and your family. Like I said, the fleets that I've been talking to have been making sure that their employment areas are more inclusive and have people that represent what is out there in America right now.
That's awesome that more and more people are just getting to know about the trucking industry and getting to know that it is a great way to make money, just no matter your race or gender or anything like that. It's awesome that it's just being brought directly into communities and just becoming so much more accessible. Knowing how hot the trucking industry right now, that's exactly what the industry needs, and that's exactly what people looking for jobs need. Now, I know we've talked about just some of the more positive side of things, that the trucking industry is diverse, that there haven't been just a lot of large systemic issues within the trucking industry, which is super refreshing to hear, I think. But as I was doing research, I was finding that a lot of truckers who were just making video content or writing blogs were talking about just how there are still some racial bias in the industry that they've experienced, whether that's at truck stops in just different parts of the country, depending on what state they're in, or maybe between other truckers, or even during the hiring process. Do you have any insight on that?
There's problems on the ground level for sure. I mean, I'm not here to candy coat things and say, everything is great and we all get along and stuff like that. I mean, there's bias, racial bias, gender bias, in every industry. I mean, let's be clear about that. There are people out there who have experienced that and had pretty bad experiences with that. It's a very individual problem when you talk about, those instances where when you have that hate and that type of racism pointed out towards you. And as an African American male, I definitely understand that and, come to grips with, how that's in our society, unfortunately. But, the companies are figuring this out, and they are trying to assuage those concerns and minimize the effect of cultural and gender and racial bias. It's all about access. So if you want people to be interested in the trucking industry, you have to show people why it's interesting in the first place. So, I mean, when these companies and these organizations go into these neighborhoods and introduce these people to the trucking industry, people have those preconceived notions. When you say, trucker, people would think, like redneck trucker or something low down and dirty. That's the stereotype that I was used to and the bias that I was used to until I got into the industry and covered the industry and found out that it's not like that at all.
It was really interesting to hear you talking about just the biases that people have towards the trucking industry, because coming into all truck jobs, similarly to you, probably would have thought just that the trucking industry was full of a lot of redneck truckers, like you said, and you kind of realize that you miss a lot of the personality that truckers have. But it's just been really interesting working here at All Truck Jobs and just getting to see the heart behind why truckers love the industry, why they drive for all of these hours and are wanting to give up months and months on end with their family because they love their career and love their jobs. And so it's just been really cool to kind of get past my own biases that I've had towards truckers and just get to know what they're actually like and how they just help keep America running.
Yeah, Julia, one of the things that you were just mentioning about truck drivers, being gone for days or weeks at a time, we can also talk about the diversification of the truck driving job, where most younger drivers I speak to, they who are new to the industry, they appreciate having a driving job where they can come home every day, like where you'll find them that last mile driver. So, I mean, and there are, the trucking companies today, they're also aware of that as well. We were talking about that, redneck truck driver where, he's gone for days at a time and weeks at a time, where you can have a truck driving job where you're going maybe, 120 miles round trip.
It's also really interesting to just hear that you're not just stopping at race when we're talking about diversity in the trucking industry. I think it's really cool to hear that we're talking about different types of driving and how that should be diverse and how different races and genders should also be in the trucking industry. I think that's really exciting. So I know that earlier you were talking about just how valuing diversity and inclusion is a matter of the heart, which I think is just so true. And that's something that I think if we applied to the whole country would just do us wonders. But what are things that you think truckers or people watching this can work on in their own hearts to just continue to promote diversity and inclusion just throughout the trucking industry as a whole?
Well, first of all, it's just understanding. There's nothing wrong of being proud of who you are.
Mhm.
And when we talk about diversity, we want to frame it into the context of a celebration. I mean, we should celebrate our differences because it's our differences that makes us the people who we are, and we can contribute in many different ways and apply it to where we're at in the workplace. I mean, it's often cliche. Companies say, diversity makes us all better. Having a diverse field helps our company do X, Y, and Z and sell the most widgets we can. So, I mean, but it's true. I mean, if there's certain things that as an African American male that I could present to a group of people who are not looking like me to help that particular situation in the workforce, then that's a good thing. That should be a good thing.
Right.
And, be it, if you're, African American, or if you're a female, you're Indian, Latinx, I mean, anything. I mean, those experiences are unique, and we're all unique in our own simple way. It basically does come down to understanding. People exploit racial bias or any types of bias, because they knowingly have that advantage, but there are more people who are opposite of that in that way of thinking than there are people who have that frame of mind, fortunately. And I would like to believe that, but it all comes down to understanding and knowing who people are. And Martin Luther King was right. We all should be judged on the content of our character, have that understanding and learning who people are and learning different mindsets and opinions that are not similar to yours.
If people listening can take away anything from this conversation, I really just hope that they just remember that we all have our unique individual stories that make us humans and make us who we are, and that it's just so important to celebrate that and bring that into every industry, especially in the trucking industry, just because that's what we're discussing. But if truckers have these kind of values in their hearts, they're driving them across the country, and we can share that from people if they start in Pennsylvania and go all the way to California. And so I just think that's super exciting. I really appreciate everything that you had to share with us today. As we close out, I'm just wondering if you had anything else that you wanted to share relating to what we've talked about today, or any of your hopes for diversity just across all different types of things in the trucking industry, or just any final remarks?
But yes, it's just that the trucking industry as a whole is a very welcoming industry. Like any industry, there's bad apples. But I mean, once people know the types of careers that you could have in the trucking industry, then the doors should bust wide open of people wanting to get into the industry, especially in this age, because I mean, like I was saying, there's so many ways that you can have a career in the trucking industry. It's a great thing to see, and people realizing, people of color, gender, sexual orientation, people are seeing, what the trucking industry can offer, and just me personally, just kind of being in this space and witnessing this all, and getting to talk to the leaders in the industry about this particular subject and other subjects as well. That's not all that that I like to talk about, but all the inner workings of the trucking industry, I just feel really blessed to be in a position that I'm in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for just being willing to sit down with us. We love just your zeal for the trucking industry and everything that your podcast is doing and sharing with truckers and just people who want to be more informed with the industry. And I'm so excited for people to just get to listen to this conversation and continue learning and just looking into themselves so we can continue promoting diversity and inclusion in a variety of ways throughout the trucking industry. So thank you so much today, Michael.
Thanks for having me, Julia.